from Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thank you, Speaker. My question was for the Premier. However, I'll ask the Minister of Labour. Minister, we've heard the Premier talk a lot about the need to restore fairness in Ontario's construction industry. Well, the Fair and Open Tendering Act would do exactly that. By passing this bill, we would save Ontario taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars every year by preserving and restoring the ability of municipalities and school boards to openly tender contracts for large infrastructure projects. To take a stand for taxpayers, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the mayors and regional chairs of Ontario, and the large Urban Mayors Caucus of Ontario have all endorsed this important legislative reform. So, Minister, will you take a stand for Ontario municipalities and taxpayers by voting in favour of the Fair and Open Tendering Act today?
Before I go to the Minister of Labour, the question was put in a way that I do want to use it as a reminder, including some other things I've heard from this side. We do not refer to somebody's presence here one way or the other, or try to find a way to make comment on somebody's presence or not being here. So I'm asking all members to respect that tradition and stay on track. Minister of Labour.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I want to thank the member from Kitchener-Conestoga for the question. I thank him for the work he's been doing on this bill. He and I had the opportunity to meet as well. I think we've spoken a couple of times now, and I appreciate the work he's doing. And I look forward to a very meaningful debate this afternoon on this bill. Speaker, our government believes in fair and balanced labour relations. When bargaining a collective agreement, parties are free to negotiate terms that restrict the ability of the employer to contract only with unionized contractors. Some public service employers have become bound to province-wide construction industry collective agreements that contain restrictions on contracting out when the employees unionize. However, Speaker, if a party feels that they should not be bound to a province-wide collective agreement, they do have options. In the legislation, there is a non-construction employer exemption that exists that that municipalities can apply to.
Thank you. Supplementary.
I'm standing up for your mayors again.
Minister, when the Premier was talking about Ontario's construction industry last week, she said, quote, "It only makes sense for there to be some fairness in the system." So I hope you would agree that the province should no longer stand by and allow thousands of qualified contractors to be deprived of their right to work on public infrastructure in the community where they live, work, and pay taxes. This labour practice is wrong, and you know it. Discriminating against qualified contractors on the basis of who they have chosen to associate with is patently unfair and unacceptable. So, Minister, will you stop dividing Ontarians and take action to restore fairness in Ontario's construction industry today?
Quit dividing.
Speaker, as I was mentioning earlier, that there is a very specific non-construction employer exemption that exists under the Ontario Labour Relations Act, and if a municipality or a public entity feels that they are not a construction employer, they can file an application with the Ontario Labour Relations Board. In fact, Speaker, the member opposite must know that that exemption was actually brought in by then Minister of Labour Jim Flaherty in 1998, and very clearly those criteria, and that the exemption was renewed again or refined again in 2000 by the Progressive Conservative Party when they were in government. In fact, Speaker, I find it very interesting that at Hamilton City Council, when a debate was taking place on this particular private member's bill that will be debated this afternoon, the City Council from Stony Creek and former PC Minister of Labour Brad Clark refused to support the motion. He said what is proposed